figures and
That's okay.
the camera just came alive. I just saw it move.
Everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready to go, Mike? Right? Okay. All right, I'd like to call the Economic Development Commission's regular meeting to order. It is Thursday, March 18th, 2021, and roll call. And we'll jot down everybody here.
Yeah, I'll get the roll call.
Just as a side note, Charlie did send me a note. I guess his wife had a baby. So I sent him our congratulations. And so he said he would be able to join us next meeting.
All right.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 3, public participation. We have Catherine. Let me see if she wants. Okay, yep. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, good evening. Catherine Camera, 31 Cottage Place. I have a greeting for you guys. I don't think all of you would know her, but Nancy Rahuba told me to say hello to the Economic Development Commission and actually especially to Jack.
We remember her when she was
Yeah.
on the commission.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
She was really good.
I'm good friends with Nancy and I wasn't at the last meeting. I was traveling. So I was telling her the meeting before about the conversation about, how people, only Democrats and Republicans are able to get seats nowadays. They don't really welcome everybody. And she reminded me that she was an independent when she served on your commission. And I know you've referred to her in the past, and she was as I understand it, a very good member. And it just points out that, there are people in our community that are not Republicans or Democrats, and they could very well enhance boards and commissions if they were allowed to do that. But that's not your issue. I'm just mentioning that. So now I just want to say that I understand that the Sealy property was sold, which I'm happy to hear that. However, I'm a little bit dismayed that Mr. Yaman is one of the purchasers, only because he had purchased the Griffin School property and told the town he was going to turn it into elderly apartments. It went for years. No, that didn't happen. And now we have the most hideous building in town there. So it does raise concern for me over who purchased it and what their intention will be. And having said that, I've talked to people about the fact that it's been purchased. And I just want to tell you that everybody I talk to gets very upset about the idea of moving Mosgrove Field and about the idea of turning that Four Corners into retail. Everybody in this area, and I live very close, I can see the CVS from my upstairs window. We feel like that area is a great walking area. It's got a library. Well, now it's got a CVS, but it's got a few restaurants, a library, a post office. Down the road is the theater. People forget that there's a theater and the church. And a little farther from that is the, can't think of what it's called, the building, the very large building that's now, renting space, that Pin Shop, the Pin Shop. And I know that they had talked about, somebody at one point had wanted to turn a loft, I don't know, somewhat of an apartment and business up there. I mean, one day they may make some apartments in there, but this area is a very walkable, you've got Swift, kids walk from there, the library, it's just a walkable area, and turning that all into like retail with cars blowing in and out of parking lots just really isn't what people in this area are envisioning. I just thought I would let you know that, because I have been asking around, because I do live in that area. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And I don't see anyone else for public participation, right? Frank? Okay, and so I'd like to move on to the approval of the minutes of the February 18th meeting. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
Is there a
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay. Motion's made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you. Second. Okay, correspondence, none.
None.
Okay, and we'll move right to the economic development coordinator's report.
Steve, I need to talk to you. Did you get the minutes, Steve? Or my
Yeah.
report? Did you get my report?
Yeah,
Okay, because every time I send it to your email, which I have is dr.stevemiskey@gmail.com.
yeah.
I get it bounced back as undeliverable, so
That's weird.
maybe,
I'll call you after tomorrow, see if we can get it straightened.
Okay,
okay, all right. Well, number one in my report, working with several potential buyers, there's been one particular lot in the business park that has generated some interest quickly. It's basically behind Sola Islet on Park Road. It's maybe adjacent, but more behind it. And in the meantime, a couple of people, one of them talked with Joe Paletta Sr. about looking for a plant to build there. And then I've had some conversations with another business person who's now in Danbury, who wants to move to Watertown and looking at the property. So that piece of property right now has two people of interest. It's 26 acres. It's across from the Muskalook, the former Muskalook property. So, and that's good news for us, because if we get both of those people, there are other lots I recommended to all of them. So if we get both of them to build new manufacturing buildings in Watertown, that will be a real plus for us. So, and it looks like both of them are probably going to buy land. Now, how quickly they build will be a whole nother issue, but they do want to acquire the properties.
The building at the Muskalook property is huge. When you mentioned it last meeting, I was like, I'm gonna go drive by, and it looks pretty big.
yeah.
Well, that was one of them. That's one of the lots they're considering. One of the problems with the remaining part of the Muskalook property are the power lines that cut through it. And you could still situate a factory building in there, but it would probably have to be more long and narrow than wide. So, but that's what other Mr. Dufour, who owns it, did. If you've driven by there, his new building is well under construction.
Yeah.
And it sits immediately behind the old Muskalook farmhouse. And he should be coming online pretty soon with it. They've really moved along with the steel work.
I think Joe sent them 3 different parcels. And there's actually a couple of more parcels, but we sort of focused on those 3 because those are the ones that are most buildable at this point.
Yeah.
One of the other ones has a lot of blasting to do. So let's present the best we have, or the best that fit for them right now. If those don't work, we can always reach out to them and say, okay, we do have this other property if necessary. But I think, as Joe said, it's a good. It's pretty encouraging to have 2 people looking to build in town.
And we're having active discussions with them. It's not a casual, hey, you got something. I mean, with one of them, I've exchanged probably 5 or 6 emails with questions they had about basically what my job is, and that is cutting through the red tape to help them get to their permitting phases. Number 2, Joe McGrail reminded me that now that Trinity has probably indicated they're not going to come to Watertown simply because they had a tentative deal on a piece of property and then it never got consummated. So I sent a letter to their chief operating officer of the Hartford Healthcare. They're doing a lot of advertising now, and they built a couple of nice new facilities, including one up in Winstead. So I sent them a letter, which I will forward to you folks, saying, please give us a call. We're still very interested in some sort of a medical facility, urgent care or combined medical facility in Watertown. So,
And I think the next step would be, if we don't hear anything from them, maybe we reach out to Yale. Yale seems to be coming pretty heavily into Cheshire and into some of the surrounding areas. So we just want to make sure we'll hit everybody, but we'll just take them one at a time here and we'll see what the reaction is.
Yeah. Number three, we met with the town officials and purchasers of the former Sealy property in Oakville to discuss very preliminary plans. And I won't say much about it because it's later on our agenda, Joe.
Yep.
But we had what I thought was a very productive, a very preliminary meeting. It was, they had not read the report that we had submitted early on. So I sent them a copy of the Sealy report that we did. And before we had the meeting, they did read it in detail because their main concern was what was the town interested in having there? And the Sealy report pretty much answers that question. So, and we can talk more about that meeting. It's on the item under new business on your agenda. We have signed a contract with the Connecticut Web Factory. The guy used to be in Morris, but now he's moved to Cheshire to redo the EDC website. Is that on our agenda too, Joe? Yeah, it is.
Plus, we can talk, well, either way, we can talk about it now or later, so.
All right, well, our website right now on the town website is absolutely useless. It's disgraceful, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. So we really have to edit it, fix it. We probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago, we hired somebody to do that website, and their software was so proprietary that we couldn't use it without them. And then they moved on to other things. So it's time to take a look at it. You will also notice item 5 is kind of tied into item 4. I am also on the committee to redo the entire town website. So I will make sure our EDC website is consistent with whatever new plans we're doing with this company called Revise. We've made outstanding progress on doing the new website in the last 6 weeks. That we're probably pretty close to putting the finishing touches on the whole town website, and then we'll merge our website. We're running on parallel paths right now. We'll do ours, and I'll have a voice on the town, and we'll make sure that they're compatible with each other. So that's I think really good news for us, because we're now we're sort of leaping into the 21st century instead of crawling. So and it's later on the agenda. Robbie's smiling because I know he sent us some examples of others that we found very useful.
He also said he loved the old website, but he was going to relent and let us go ahead and build a new website. Right? Did I get that right, Rob?
Well, I'm sorry.
You said you love the old website. I know we're going to fight with you to go to a new one. So.
Well, it's funny. I think that's probably something that a lot of towns have learned too, just through everything with, over the past year, having to put more services online, reach out to people in a different way than they have in the past and all that kind of stuff. It just highlighted how important, for the future of our town. And, even if there's not many people that, want to use the website for those purposes, the younger people moving in are looking into that. So it's smart for our future for sure. But yeah, when you look at the websites that I sent you, it's kind of funny to look at ours, look at that, look at ours.
Yeah.
So ask. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Who did the Park and Rec website? Do you know?
The Park and Rec website.
I don't know. I don't know who did Park and Rec.
I was very impressed with that. It's so easy to manipulate around and to cruise through everything, and it's an immediate click from the town website. It just gets there seamlessly and so easy. Every single category that they have is so easy to navigate and very helpful.
That's the new one they just put up, right?
That's the new one they put up. I was wondering who did this.
Yeah. Well, we'll certainly look at that one too, because we don't have as much interactive as they do, signing up people for programs and all that. But
Hopefully, you know,
it is good,
there's
yeah.
room for growth there.
So what I'd like to do is ask you now, I mean, I can ask now, I guess, instead of during the agenda, but is anyone interested in being on, we'll set up a small subcommittee that we can just sit down with this guy, Dave, and maybe try to give him some ideas of what we want to see. Probably, maybe 1 or 2 Zoom calls and maybe just swapping some emails back and forth with designs. And then we'll take that to the whole commission.
Sure.
Anybody would like to do it?
Robbie?
Rob, Zaga? Okay.
And
All right,
Rob,
so we'll send a copy of the Zoom meetings to you guys, when everything is set up. And then, like I said, once we get something set up, we'll get back to the whole commission. But I just didn't want to do it just Joe and I, without bringing other people in, other thoughts into, so. Okay, thank you for that. So Zaga.
Zaga, did you want to be on the subcommittee?
but Rob, definitely, right, Robbie?
Yeah, Robbie's gonna be, Robbie's gonna be, yep,
Okay.
Yeah, anywhere I could be helpful, or
yep, okay.
I'm not shy about giving my opinion, good or bad.
Okay,
So we signed that contract. It was only $3,000. So, we're not talking about mega bucks. And the guy's got a pretty good reputation. And plus he's local, so we can get him in fast if we need it. Number 5 was basically what I talked about. I'm on the committee to revise the town website. Number 6 there, and we can talk about that or maybe next meeting. Joe and I have had kicking around some ideas about the, you want to talk about it now?
yeah, we could talk, we're just gonna give it, there's not much to talk about, we'll just tell you what our thoughts are here.
Yeah, there's 300 acres on Bunker Hill Road across from the old Pamelitas farm that is currently zoned residential. And that's where they're going to put up a Heritage Woods subdivision. I was talking with a contact of mine the other day, and Jack, you might remember this because I think you're probably the only one who was here then. That they were telling me that early on, Paparazzo had proposed an industrial park there with 16 sites and had proposed it to planning and zoning. And they got in some heated discussions about road width and everything else. And planning and zoning wouldn't agree to it. So they pulled out of that project. So it's a piece of history I had not known. And it would be interesting to talk to Keith Sorensen, who's the president of the company now, to see if he would entertain maybe building a small industrial park over there with an entrance off of Bunker Hill and Newwood Road. But it's all very preliminary. We haven't even talked to Keith yet about it. But we were kicking it around.
Yeah, so I mean, the door was open, a contact was made with them. We're just waiting to hear back from him to see what his thoughts are. I mean, for people that aren't familiar with that land, so basically it goes from Bunker Hill Avenue extension all the way up to the Nissan dealer. It runs behind Commercial Street. It's a huge tract of land, 300 acres. So, we possibly, several things could be done on that property. So it doesn't have to be all housing, it doesn't have to be all industrial park, maybe a blend or something, but we're just gonna open the door and sort of go with our hat in our hand a little bit. Now that we know some of the background stories and possibly why they pulled out. The industrial park was pulled out because of an issue between P&Z and the owner, and the housing development fell through because of the downturn in the housing market going back some years ago. But I think let's open it. We're going to open the door and see if he's up for discussion, and let's see where that brings us. That's the same property that Joe has reached out to Toll Brothers, Del Webb, a number of different Pulte, to see if they were interested in putting up 55 and over housing, something like Regency and Prospect. Because Regency and Prospect's finished now, the last section was done. And I know that Ridgewood is going full tilt out there in Middlebury. And I don't know how much is left of that project, but if they're interested in that type of housing in the general area, Prospect and Middlebury are sort of a stone's throw from Watertown, in a manner of speaking. So it would be a perfect fit if they think the demographics are right and there's enough of a market for it. So we want to make sure all those people know that the land is available. It has water and sewer on it. So they're way ahead of the curve. But again, let's see what Keith Sorensen says before we go any further, reaching out to others. So
Is
Yeah,
that the one that has a lot of wetlands on it?
there is some wetlands on the bottom, yeah. But I think further up, it's a lot of rock with some ledge. So it's a little bit challenging site. It's not just a meadowland to build on, but
yeah, it's not 300 usable acres, but there may be 150 acres in there. I've always been mystified why they paid for the property. In the meantime, they've bought up other pieces of property around their original piece. And then it paid $1 million to bring water and sewer to the site. And then they haven't done anything in 15 years. So Joe and I are going to see if we can get something going there, or at least some discussion or possible use.
I loved your idea back in the day, just for tax, excuse me, tax dollar purposes and everything. Your voice is catching, Joe.
I don't know.
The idea you had, I mean, I don't know if you had just thrown it out there, but it was like 1 million square foot for a TheraPlant. Was that, am I making that up?
no, I mean, there was other parcels of land. Muscaluk was one that was a possible for TheraPlant.
But that was like a possibility. They were kind of looking into seeing what happened with the legislation first. Obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they were looking around for different opportunities in Watertown, but because the marijuana bill never made it very far in Connecticut. And I think it's pretty well known that once that does pass, that they're likely going to expand, and hopefully they'll expand to that expansion of Watertown.
Yeah.
They're a very good corporate citizen. They've been very good to nonprofits and other people in town, and so they create a lot of jobs up there. So.
And they've expanded in their current site.
Yeah.
So they're bigger than they were when they started out on their current site. So
The historical survey or update on that property, the Panelitis' farm property, was accurate. What the way you summed it up was accurate, and it's a logical place for industrial also, because Commercial Street is all industrial and it backs up to that. So it's a logical place to pursue for industrial.
Yeah, I mean, for the story that we heard, and again, I don't, so I'll take the story at its face value. It was a dispute over the size, the width of the roads.
and who would own them?
So I guess initially the builder wanted to own the roads. He was going to put 30-foot roads in there, but P&G wanted 40-foot roads, and they wanted to own the roads. So, but I guess from my perspective, if somebody wants to own roads and maintain the roads, that's their issue. I mean, I don't know why the town would care. The only time I would accept it would be if the fire chief said that the roads aren't wide enough to get a fire truck there. But I don't see, I think that was a little bit, personally, I think it was a little bit intrusive by P&Z, just to put down that mandate. But anyway, that's a 15 or 20-year-old story, but
Yep.
I was sort of disappointed to hear the reason why it never moved forward, so.
In my understanding,
I'm sorry.
my contact was at the meeting, and he was saying that there was a shouting match in the town manager's office about accepting this or not. And the planning and zoning at that time said, well, they're not going to pull out, because they were going to put up supposedly a 19-lot subdivision, and they had 3 of them sold. but the argument was over the width of the road.
Yeah.
And planning and zoning at that point said, they're not gonna pull out just over 10 feet width of the road. Well, they did.
Yeah. That's what happened.
From my experience with inland wetlands, usually the issue is a fire marshal issue. We dealt, when I was on inland wetlands, we dealt with a lot of issues where the fire marshal came in and the roads had to be made wider, and it has to do with the turnaround space as well as.
Yeah, yeah.
And it depends upon how many units you're putting up, and so usually there are fire issues that are involved in the width of the road if there's a controversy. We went through that a lot.
And that's 25, 30-year-old history. So
Yeah, right.
everything's changed since then. Back to my report, just finished up there. Item 7 is just an interesting item that once the Sealy property, well, it wasn't publicized that the Sealy property was sold. So I got, once it was released from remediation, I got 2 other brokers who called me and said they were interested in making an offer on the land. And I said, well, you know, you're a little late because it's already been contractually signed and sealed and delivered. So, but it was interesting that there were 2 other developers who were interested in doing something on that property. We didn't get to what they were going to do because it didn't make any difference. The property was already sold. And the last item of my report, the planning and zoning has continued a public hearing on the rest home close to Bunker Hill and Straits Turnpike. If you know what they're talking about, where it is, they've asked for a zoning amendment to allow age-restricted housing development overlay. And I didn't go to the planning and zoning meeting, so I don't know the details about that, but I will find out. They extended the public hearing for one more session because I guess the property owners had not notified the property abutters of their request to do this. So by next meeting, I'll have some more information for you about what they intend to do with restricted housing development. So age-restricted housing development. So.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, move on to old and unfinished. The budget, as it stands right now, we what we asked for, we're getting a little bit more. So just have to wait and see till the town vote. But right now it looks promising that we'll have enough funds to do a few extra things this year. I know that we're talking about possibly once this COVID is gone, maybe do a night out for the business owners in town or a meeting of some sort. So let's see what happens, but keep our fingers crossed the budget goes as it stands right now. Okay.
I was going to talk about number B item B there. The storefront discussion, item B. In this new plan that got passed through Congress, there are additional funds for the Paycheck Protection Program to be extended. So that's going to be some good news. If, not if, the governor has removed restrictions for almost everything for today or tomorrow. So that means restaurants. I've been talking to some restaurant owners, and it's good news, but it's not great news because he's allowed unrestricted access, but you still have to maintain the 6 foot social distancing. And they were basically doing that anyway. So they don't think it's going to increase a lot of in-house business for them. However, they change the attitude of the people, and more people might want to use the tables that they do have, because part of the resistance to business was the fear of going into an indoor location. Now that the governor has lifted those restrictions, it might get easier. So, and I am pleased to know that two downtown Oakville buildings and possibly 3 storefronts have been rented in the last 2 months. So that's something.
Yeah, so to people, if you're familiar with, Oakville Main Street there, next to the old Dunkin' Donuts, Sue Ponton's place,
Right.
that's now a restaurant. And it
Across from-
looks like they
Across
told,
from, what I was gonna say, for reference, across from the Pin Shop Pond.
yep. And it looks like they've taken both storefronts. So that was a good thing. That's been empty for quite some time. And I know that possibly.
Yeah, the 3 I'm talking about are next to the post office.
Okay.
So,
So it looks like that might be finally filled up a little bit. So that's encouraging also.
if I were going to get into a business, a retail business, now would be a good time for me because we're coming out of the COVID. And if things do open up in the fall, the demand for restaurants will probably increase. And and probably all retail. So I see a little light at the end of the tunnel here as a positive for businesses, current and new.
So do we know how many of our Main Street businesses are owner occupied, or how many are actually owned by people out of state or out of town?
Most of them are owned by landlords. They're right, and on Main Street, I can think like Tony's Seafood, he owns that.
Yeah.
But most of the buildings on downtown Main Street and downtown Oakville are multi-tenants. The properties are owned by landlords.
Well, it's funny. I feel like, this is obviously a part of the bigger conversation that we want to have with, the facade program or just helping people in general. But you can totally tell who owns their buildings that their own business is in. You know what I mean? Because Tony's Seafood, they look amazing. Like they've done so much work. Bear Bolt, they did so much work to that little house. It's, whatever you can do to that little hut that was there is cute. You know what I mean? Like they did whatever they could to improve it. So it's just, it's interesting. It's very like obvious. The buildings that the people are just like, I'm just trying to rent this.
I don't remember the site, but there was a site some while ago that you could go on and you actually saw the names and addresses of all the owners of all the property and the age of the properties and how long that owner had it. Because there are so many programs that, especially after now with COVID funding coming in, that would be to help businesses actually upgrade, but I don't think that they could do that if they don't own the business. And if we were going to support something like that, you're supporting somebody out of state and it doesn't help the small business owner actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw where Pasta Gallery was, but whoever bought that building has been doing some work to the building. They like relined the roof. They obviously had to fix that whole side where the car hit it, but then they what is it called when you remortar the bricks? Point?
Yep.
They did that to a lot of like the windowsills and all that kind of stuff and repainted. And I think the guy that used to work there he took over now. So it's Ray's Place instead of Pasta Gallery.
Okay.
But they're doing really great things to that building, at least, which is, it was an eyesore for a little while. So it's kind of nice if they're making improvements.
I still call it the Great White Way, but that building, I've greatly revised. It's still a landlord tenant facility, but still, they really did a nice job on the facade of that.
I don't remember who that guy is, but I know that he cares. He did those 2 houses that were kind of, if you're looking at what is that church that's kind of near St. Mary's School across the street?
St. Mary Magdalene.
The St. Mary Magdalene School, the
Union Congressional Church.
Yes.
You're talking about, yes, right behind it's Union Congressional Church.
So those 2 houses to the right of that, he's the same. He owned those and renovated those. So if you look at those, he did a really great job. He added a lot of character to the front of them. And he's the same person. Again, I don't know who he is. I just know that he was the one that did all of those. So he does some good like quality work. He actually cares like, to improve the facade of all these places that he owns, which is great.
My understanding is that he owns that Great White Way building, and he's a tenant there too with the upholstery shop. So he has a personal interest in maintaining that building.
Yeah.
So
I'm still trying to get those trees. How many years ago was this that we started talking about it?
no loss, no loss.
All right, we'll move on to item C. Just a continued note here, the 10-acre mall. The most excitement I've seen in Watertown Oakville in a while is that Jersey Mike's is coming. I've heard a lot of stories about that, and people are really can't wait for that place to open. So it's getting a lot of attention. I think he's going to open towards the end of the month. I know there's a banner outside, the sign's up, but there's a banner. So I guess shortly he's going to be opening that up. So.
The new gymnasium has a half-page ad.
Yeah, I did see that.
In the paper today, soliciting memberships. So,
yeah. So it looks like things are picking up.
I hear good things about the hardware store. I haven't been in there, but I hear good things.
Yeah.
And it's a nice store. And I also, we were always wondering whether Connecticut was going to move or not. And then I saw an ad in the newspaper said, we're moving, everything discounted. So I guess that building will probably soon sit empty unless they've sold it to somebody else.
I think that would probably garner some attention because it has parking. It's a relatively new building. That was all rebuilt after the fire that just totaled the place and had to be torn down and rebuilt only a few years ago now. So I think that might be an easier rent than some of the other properties might be in Watertown, Oakville. So
I think that's like a perfect example though of what we always talk about whenever I say like, to other people, the CVS might not be as horrible as I think it is. But once that CVS, if it ever has to go out of business for some weird reason, you have this weird French fry of a building. Whereas like you see that one has character, it's cool. That Connecticut Hardware can be anything now. You know what I mean? Anything can move in there. It's not going to be this like weird building that only has one purpose. It can be a restaurant. It could be another store. It could be, there's so many different purposes to it. Taco Bell, if they close, they're a Taco Bell. They're going to have to get knocked down again and all that stuff. So I think that's like a perfect case for that, really, for that argument.
And it will be consistent with J.R. Laliberty, who bought the property across the street, the old Bradshaw property. And if his plan is to renovate that into retail stores, and that could make the old Connecticut Hardware even more attractive to people. So,
because it looks like he already has a couple of tenants in the Bradshaw office building part. Affordable Auto Body is going to move from Newwood Road down there.
he doesn't own that, but.
But he's gonna, somebody's gonna do that. And I noticed that there's a window tinting place that's gonna be downstairs where the parts department used to be. So businesses have already started moving up down into that area. So that's a good sign.
That is a good sign.
One thing I wasn't sure, I wanted to see if I could find out before this meeting, and I haven't been able to reach them, but I don't know if it's official that Mark's Gardens closed. But it looks like they've kind of packed up, and just from my personal discussions with them in the past, I know that they kind of wanted this to be their last Christmas season, if it could be. And it looks like it's pretty closed. I mean,
well, I think there's a sign there, Robbie. A commercial realtor has that property, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting site there. There's several buildings there that could potentially be up for sale, but who knows what's going to happen in that section. But that's due for a rebuild probably in the near future.
And that's something we can kind of put on the list too, is when we do need, what do we want to see in town or something? Because slowly kind of all the greenhouses have closed, really, right? I mean, it was Lorraine's and then the JK greenhouse, Mark's Gardens, Hoskins.
Hoskins, yeah.
So So that'll be something that we're missing, when we're always looking at stuff that's, we don't even have one of those anymore in town. That'll be
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Has JK's decided to go out of business?
I don't know if they went out of business, but they slowed down their production. So I know they only had one greenhouse open this past summer.
Yeah. Well, they're getting a lot of competition from the Home Depots and Lowe's, and those people are going in big time. Even Adams. I was talking to John Karras, who owns JK's, a year ago, and he was bemoaning the fact that even Adams supermarket had a huge display of hanging baskets and things.
Well, even with Mark's Gardens, I know that they had a huge problem with St. John's School. They were selling pumpkins and all of that stuff like on the front of the church. And that was like cutting into their profit margins for the fall. Obviously, the garden center is only selling pumpkins and mums basically. So I know that was hitting them every year. They were getting really, it was tough. They would be mad every year. So yeah, there's just competition everywhere.
Yeah, are we open for general discussion about business right now, or?
Yeah, I mean, we can move on to as far as.
I'll say it till later.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Just to finish up on their old and unfinished business, Joe's already mentioned about these people looking for these several sites. Matter of fact, when I wrote this originally, there was only one person looking. We ended up having two people, so as we talked about earlier. And okay, so we open up under new business, item number 8. Do you want to talk about?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So we had a very, very, very preliminary discussion with John Lombard and Joe Yaman. And also, I think there's a gentleman, last name of Mecca. He might be part of that group. Franklin Pilacy was there, and they had a couple of engineers there. They really came in with a blank piece of paper. As Joe mentioned, they read over the Access advanced CT write-up. And I thought it was a very positive discussion because there was nobody came in with a plan for that property officially. They were there to listen to the town and to see, what we were interested in. And as Catherine had mentioned earlier, we did bring up all that. That was all discussed at the meeting. The walkability of Oakville, the stores, the restaurants, the churches, and everything else that was there. And again, we threw out the possibility of doing a mixed use of retail, commercial, and retail, commercial, and residential were the things we talked about. So there's still some question about residential with deep and stuff like that, but nothing was thrown off the table. I think it was a very good discussion. And so let's see what they come back with. Mark Massoud was there.
Yeah.
And Mark did a very good job explaining all those details and what he'd like to see there. We gave our input of what we'd like to see there.
Rich Antonetti and the
Rich Antonetti was there. So it was a good mix of people. And it was a very friendly meeting. There was nobody was trying to force somebody into saying something or doing something. So I don't know, Joe and I came away pretty encouraged on what we saw. They're talking about maybe 2 or 3 pads up there. They're not sure exactly how to break it up, but maybe, again, I think there has to be a retail element to it. Just how much, I'm not sure. But again, I was encouraged, at least at that preliminary discussion. So.
And at least to blow our own horns a little bit, you as a commission, we have been reasonably Johnny-come-lately on these things. We got late with Starbucks. We got late with Taco Bell. We got late with Ion Bank. This time we are ahead of the curve. We commissioned the Sealy study. It says what we want to do. We had this meeting before anybody got any ideas, before anybody set any plans. We had this, it was an informal meeting to discuss what we would like to see there. and they actually paid attention and listened. I think we can do the same on these people who are looking to build manufacturing plants. We are in early enough now that if those two plants come to be, we will have been in on the ground floor and have good relationships and can shape a little bit more design and a lot of things that we've come lately to in the past. So I'm particularly pleased about that.
But I'd like to I really need to talk to Mark Ramo about this too, because it should be mandatory that Joe gets invited to these pre-application meetings. That's why in some cases we were caught short. We didn't know they were taking place. I thought it was already agreed to, a gentleman's agreement that he would be invited. And I think it should be up to Joe whether he wants to not attend. So if somebody wants to come in and put up a 10-house subdivision, that's really not an economic development issue from my perspective. But if somebody wants to do the Ion Bank, if somebody wants to do, if they eventually want to do something to the pin shop or some other type of building that's going to take place, then Joe should be there. We should have a seat at that table and get our thoughts in right from the get-go. We were lucky, the Ion Bank was very agreeable to make some changes that we recommended at our meeting. We got lucky with Starbucks, that we reached out to the VP, one of the VPs at Starbucks, and got some changes to the building. And John Lombard, to his credit, he didn't fight us on it, and they made the changes. So some of the things, again, we were caught a little bit off guard is because we didn't know some of the stuff was going on. So I think a lot of other towns, economic development is part of that meeting. And so we really think that needs to be codified, and that has to be in the instructions of who's going to be invited to these meetings. So I'll talk to Mark about that shortly.
And it means another meeting for me, so I'll be asking for some additional salary.
Well, you'll be busy with that retail business that you're see is so attractive. This just hit me that sounds like greenhouse. Maybe selling flowers would be great for you, Joe.
Well, I personally have a great need for that because I'm into that.
But I don't know if you want to add anything to the Sealy, but.
Now, I thought the Sealy meeting was a good meeting in that they obviously bought the property and that they have something in mind for what they wanted to do, or they wouldn't have bought the property. So that, with that being known, this meeting, they were very, very open about considering whatever we wanted to do. And they had read the whole report, had read it reasonably, actually very thoroughly. They came in with the report with tabs.
Mm-hmm.
Tabs on certain pages that they had some questions and issues with. But for the most part, it's the way we ought to do things in the past, in the future. I mean, like in the past with CVS, we were Johnny come lately on the architectural design. And had we paid more attention, and actually a different person in the staffing of P&Z, we might have gone in a little earlier on the design of that building. But I think now we're ahead of the curve on most of the new stuff coming in. So I was pleased with the meeting. And it was at their suggestion that we get together because they gave some indication that John Lombard was reasonably irritated that we came lately on Starbucks, and he thinks cost him some money that had we come in earlier, he would not have had to spend on design. So
I was gonna say that because I just from knowing him and everything, I know that was like a concern of his with stuff. So it's probably a good thing that he is the person that purchased this because he already has that background and knows what we're looking for, and he's gonna try and avoid at all costs to make those same mistakes or have those overages again for sure on this project.
He volunteered to expand the Oakville Green, which is internally here in the town hall. That's been an issue with Sealy, and depending on what he does with the property, we indicated we'd like to see it be reasonably park-like.
Yeah.
You know, with maybe a gazebo and some walking paths and not a particular delineation between the green and the property, so that people could, if there turns out to be a restaurant on that property, they could get something to eat and they could sit on around the green or more to the green. And they also agree to allow a lot of parking there for events that would happen at the green. Because that's all, the infill green's always been an issue when they have ceremonies. There's about 10 parking spaces on Main Street and that's it. So then they were very willing to cooperate with us on all those things. So.
I mean, I know it's an old story and I'm sure things have changed, but I remember when John wanted to purchase the property years and years ago. And when they were putting it out there of like what they would like to see, again, who knows if it was just pie in the sky kind of stuff, but that's exactly what he was saying even, 15 plus years ago or whenever he was talking about it, was something that really was an extension of the other downtown buildings, something that was going to be, kind of a future vision of what the rest of the buildings could look like downtown, and really building that vibe, like the sidewalks with lampposts and all that kind of stuff. I remember him talking a lot about, that was their vision. Again, I'm sure it's changed. As costs have changed and stuff, but I know that was his vision then. So I think he's probably a good person to have, in our corner. And I'm always defensive of you guys that you did not it was not Johnny come lately. I really still firmly believe it's thanks to, Rich, Antonetti and stuff now, ever since he's gotten involved. And it's just, like you said, it's been such a great relationship between the two. I think it just wasn't there before. That relationship just wasn't there before, the communication between the two commissions.
Well, that's true.
That's true. So it's not it has nothing to do with the present P and Z. It's just that, I just think that has to be written into the spec or written into the meeting attendees. Just so if things change, or, Rich, decides not to do that anymore, or Mark decides to not to work for the town of Watertown, then, it wants something to be in there. So whether Joe's here, no matter who's in P and Z or who's in economic development, that's all set and that they will be invited to the meetings. But I just thought about the most important thing that John Lombard said at that meeting. He said that without the success of the 10-acre mall, by converting the Kmart building into small businesses, he would have never bought that property in Sealy. He said that was such a positive for him that economic development and P&Z worked with the business owner to break that building up into small pieces. And it became very rentable or sellable, or however you want, what word you want to put with it. But, Joe and I worked with the Bartons early on, even before P&Z. And then we knew when they proposed that splitting that building up, we knew already that it was probably the only natural thing to do. Because Joe had contacted, all the big people, all the stuff that was on Watertown Talks. We talked to Target, we talked to Kohl's, we talked to Ocean State, we talked to Trader Joe's. There was a whole bunch of people that we reached out to via either letter or by email to see if they would be interested in coming to Watertown. And without fail, everyone had a reason not to come to Watertown. It wasn't because it was Watertown, it was because the building was too small, the building was too big. We were too close to other businesses. For instance, Target had said, if we were a little bit further away from Chase Avenue, then they might have thought about coming to Watertown. But because of proximity to the other Target store, they didn't feel was necessary. Because Joe and I had talked about stuff that we had read in the New York Times and different places where they were putting much smaller footprint stores. For instance, like Home Depot has a small store in Manhattan for people to buy stuff. It's not one of the stores like you would see in Waterbury or anywhere else. Kohl's, Target, all those guys have a much smaller footprint in New York City and some of the suburbs. just to meet people's needs. So, but when we were turned down by all those people, then the changes came and P&Z got involved, and so it turned out to be quite a success story. So not only for the Bartons, but also from John Lombard's perspective. So it worked out well.
Zaga, do you know this Rich Antonetti guy?
She's met him. She's met him. She knows all about him.
I'm not telling. Separate lives.
I have to say, I love how everything in the reports, Joe just said it, all this stuff, we're really getting good at saying 10-acre mall instead of the old Kmart building.
I've been trying to do that. I tried to take that out a couple of meetings ago and stop saying Kmart, but it was more of a force of habit. But I think we got the 10-acre mall down pat now. So
I had to smile that the advertisement for the gym is the name of the gym, which I've forgotten.
still be.
Something fitness,
Universal.
Universal Fitness, and then parentheses, former Kmart. It's not dead yet, but that's all right.
And they're moving from that Waterbury location where the old CVS was.
Yeah, they actually moved a long time ago, but I think this is sort of their grand opening.
Yeah.
They've been out of that CVS Plaza. Again, that's another one, CVS Plaza. It's always going to be known as CVS Plaza.
I know.
Okay, item B, we already talked about the town website.
But can we talk just a little bit more on that?
Yeah. Okay.
We need all the help we can get from you guys. So if you have some downtime and you can get on the internet and look at other towns' economic development web pages, if you find, Robbie sent us 6 or 7 of them that we all looked at and like parts of. That's how we're going to help get on this process, is see what other towns have done, what we like about some towns, what we don't like about others, and then put it together for us. So we need all of your help, even shooting me an email saying, hey, I saw these 5 websites when I was cruising the web the other day, and look at these, they may be of interest. So.
I didn't know that Park and Rec had redone their website already, and then you guys, I mentioned it when you guys were talking about it. So I just went on it while you were talking, and it's great.
Yeah, really
Awesome.
very user friendly.
Yeah, I don't know that they publicized it was coming so much, but once it was up and running, bang, there it was, and they're getting great reviews from the users and everybody.
I mean, especially on something like that, like we always say, the younger crowd is really using it a ton with like their kids signing up for sports or, any of the programs that are available, all that kind of stuff. This is great. It's wonderful.
So I have to ask, piggybacking off of your comments there, because the younger generation coming in, do we do anything, or has it ever been discussed previously about funneling some time or energy into social media for economic development? With, wanting new businesses to come on in and really kind of getting people to take an interest in Watertown. Social media is one of those platforms that the younger generation does take notice of, and they're more likely to use social media platforms than to go to a town website sometimes. So I was just curious if that's ever been brought up or something that would be an idea to discuss or pursue.
Charlie.
Yeah, well, you have the business of the week, or what's on the town website?
Oh, yeah, a couple of items, not specific to EDC, but the town has established I can't even talk to it, has established a Facebook page where they're featuring the merchant of the week. And I have some input on that. But I get where you're going, Katerina, and that is, first of all, it has to be usable on a mobile device, and not dedicated to a desktop computer. That's another issue. But the web, the social media, Charlie
Charlie Belleville, he was starting to build a Facebook page for EDC. But now since that he got married and he had a baby and his life got a little bit more busy. So let me check with Charlie to see just how far he went. Robbie, do you know if you were helping him a little bit with that too, I thought?
Yeah, he didn't, just because I build them for all my clients and stuff. I'm in charge of like over 22 different Facebook pages, but he didn't ask me too much about it. So I didn't really know, I didn't want to push him on it, because when we started talking about the whole, I heard like the rumblings of the new Facebook page for the town, I figured they were going to try and kind of combine these a little bit, and envelop anything that we would be creating. So I think it's probably a conversation more with Mark Ramo's office, where we say, we literally will create posts for you. You know what I mean? Like, please share these posts on the town's website. We will literally create the content for you. We will write them up. We will take photos if we have to take photos. We'll do this content for you. Just share it, and I already said I'll do that if we need to. I'm totally okay with being the guy that puts that energy in.
Yeah, if you could do that, like I said, Charlie's got pretty busy. I'm sure you're busy too, but he's busy in a different direction. So
I wonder if it's worth it enough for us to have our own Facebook page. It sort of gets lost in like the muddle of everything. Like I said, if we could have a say in what does get posted to the town one, and give them actual information and suggested posts and stuff, I think that would probably be better.
yeah, that sort of makes sense.
Just because we're not insanely huge, we're not we're not a city that like or even a Southington like we've mentioned before, where it's like an economic development corporation kind of thing. We're small enough that I don't know if we will have enough content, and then nobody will really care to look at our page. But if we could be involved in the town one more, and like I said, if I have to build content for that to provide to them, I would love to. I don't want to do the marches of the week, because that's a big involvement.
Yeah, no.
Well, let's do that, because the town website, I have some input for adding things to our town website, but I am not a social media guru, and boy, is that putting it mild.
Yeah, when you started talking about desktop and mobile, we kind of figured, Joe.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the more I talk, the more ignorant I become.
Let us show you the way.
It's a great idea. Lauren Laporta, who is new here, is taken control of the town website and has created the town a Facebook page, and is very, very savvy on those things. And I talk with her quite a bit, and particularly with the COVID things. The posting, when we redo our EDC website, the posting specifically for businesses, and specifically with COVID and all the regulations coming out, that's a website, as I think we all agree, is more informative than chatty. When you want to know something about, when you have a need to know something about economic development, you would go to the economic development website. You probably wouldn't be cruising through there just to see what's going on in town.
So the big thing with social media, I mean, not to get into a whole like conversation, but with social media, it's all to direct people to someplace. So you want to direct them to that economic development.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just a snippet of information that'll pop them over. Hopefully that's your intention, is to then see. And if we can, I don't know how impressive our, the back end of our new website will be, but you could even see where people are driven from. Google, are they going from the town website? Are they going from Facebook? Are they going from any of the, who's driving them to that? And then you're able to kind of target your audience a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have a certain number of metrics that you should be able to pull to see where your audience population is coming from.
Right.
But
They did say we were going to get that. We're going to get a whole series of metrics
Awesome.
that we're going to go sort through, and for that exact purpose.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, and that's all you really want, right? I mean, with like you guys see, as much as Watertown Talks is a nightmare, people get their information from there. You know what I mean? So if we can have a little bit better discourse where it's more informational on the Watertown Town website, then that's great. I'm so excited that we have that. Hopefully, all the other pages kind of go by the wayside, but.
That's some wishful thinking there.
Seriously. Or at least make them private or something. But yeah,
Well,
I think that's a great idea. If you want me to work with you on that, I'm totally, if you know,
Okay.
Kevin, if you want to work with
That
me.
sounds good. Okay, thank you.
one of the things about the town website that I've got excited about myself is on the buttons on the top. One of them is I want to : and if you click on that, it has all the things that a town could do. I want to get a marriage license. I want to get a birth certificate. I want to go to the dog park. I want to, whatever you want to do, planning and zoning, whatever you want to do. You click on, I want to see this whole list of things, and click on what you want to do with the town. And then it directs you to wherever you want to go, which I think is pretty neat. Our current one has that thing, that list on the left.
Drop down.
You got to hover on that, and then you have to move to the right. And if you have it, a little bit of the shakes, it doesn't work.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like minimal, right? There's like 50 to choose from.
Yeah. All right.
All right, so,
The website, yeah, I'm done on the EDC, right, website.
and so we'll move on to item C. But just a note here, I personally I run a nonprofit, and I have a banking account at Webster, and I was told that Webster's going to close on Straits Turnpike. I believe it's April 23rd is their last day. So I'm not sure, but hopefully somebody will take that spot. That's a high visibility spot. So I don't think there's going to be much trouble leasing that spot back out again.
Who's next to them as far as a dealership that would expand? Is it Volkswagen?
Audi, I think.
Audie's next door.
There you
Okay.
got McDonald's, yeah.
It's in the plaza where Staples is.
Oh, geez. I'm thinking
Pioneer Plaza.
of Wells Fargo, right? I'm thinking of the other.
Yeah, Wells Fargo's up there.
Other way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad. I know a lot of people love that drive-through, that ATM.
Yeah. But I know they're going to keep the one here on Main Street. So. Anything else, Joe?
I can't, one other thing, I was talking with Mark Ramo the other day about the Greenway. And there are two of them in town. One of them is really right downtown behind Seaman and the Pin Shop Pond, or the Seaman Pond, or whatever it's called over there. The other one runs along the river. It's down where the new bus barn is. There's a new greenway there that runs up to Thomaston. And it's not particularly economic development, except that it could attract people to town. That's really a very pretty part of, if you want to take a walk. Now, there's not much of it done, but one very significant piece is when the state built the bus facility, they also built a public restroom right there at the beginning of the greenway. And it's all eco, it's solar heated and solar electricity and everything. So I'm suggesting to Mark that if we get going on that greenway, which I hope we do, putting some cutouts in there for food trucks, which would make it a little bit more economic development, business people running food trucks. So having a series of food trucks along the greenway for people who walk. I don't know if you want to be really healthy. I guess you don't stop for a hot dog, but what the hell, I would. But that's another big piece of the town that is getting to the younger people who like to walk. Well, everybody likes to walk, but I mean, what sparked it was the one in Middlebury that is just jammed on weekends. And the one downtown is not as conducive because it goes through pretty much industrial areas. But the one that starts on Frostbridge Road and goes along the river up to Thomaston is really just beautiful sight. And I think long range, we ought to start working with the town to develop that. And his idea was putting some permanent restaurants, buildings along the way. And I don't know that that's as doable or that the property is there.
Yeah, I think the property is there for that, but I think it looks like Waterbury right now seems to be pushing more south down towards Naugatuck with their greenway along the Naugatuck River. But I think eventually, if you look on a future map, that greenway is supposed to go all the way down through the Naugatuck River, all the way through Thomaston up to Torrington, and it's supposed to go right down. So
Torrington to Derby, right? I think.
yeah, Derby's done. Torrington has some done. We have that little small piece in Watertown. Thomaston is talking about doing it now. I used to use the one out in Cheshire quite often years ago. I used to ride my bike out there. And, I used to go all the way down to Hamden. I guess you can go all the way down to the New Haven Harbor now. Go through a little bit tough area in New Haven, but it was a pretty nice ride. And the old railroad trail is pretty flat. But
I don't know if you guys ever go downtown Southington.
yeah, it's the same one. Yeah. It's
So
all
it extends just from it's an off branch of like the Farmington Canal Railway or whatever it's called. And my office is right there in downtown on Center Street. And it's amazing how many people, I go on my lunch break if I need like a walk just to get out of the office and stuff like that, because it's literally right there. But all the stuff that they're planning is just all along that. So even the new breweries that are opening, all that stuff, because it's where all the old factories were, like literally everything is along the whole railway. And it's super busy, which is what you want, because it does, it's a little creepy if there's not a ton of people using it, one woman just jogging through, miles of the railway is pretty creepy, but when there's a lot of people using it, it's amazing to see. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Which is economic development,
right.
Well, with Chuck Freegon, we put on a real drive, which was successful for sidewalks on Main Street. They're not on both sides of Main Street, but now with his urging, you can walk the length of Main Street. You might have to cross the street a couple of times to find a sidewalk along the Main Street. And I've been pleasantly surprised. I live on Nova Scotia Hill, and there's probably 10 or 15 people a day either walking or jogging by my house that while I'm there to see them. So the Greenway is I think aimed at fitness and youth and all of that. Part of that, and then I'll stop. Part of a hopeful desire for the Seeley property is if we could get commercial on the bottom floor and residential on the top floor with market rate apartments. My understanding, and I'm far ways away from being a young person, but my understanding of young folks is they don't want to buy cars. If I was coming out of college with $100,000 or $200,000 student debt, I wouldn't want to buy a car if I didn't have to. And I think that's part of the motivation, or maybe it's not, but people want to live in shopping areas more. I think that's the coming trend. And if the Seeley property could turn out that way, to have people actually living there and walking to CVS and walking to the stores around Oakville, and maybe the stores that are downstairs where they would live. That to me is the future. So, no.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to make just a general statement just for as far as coming out of COVID in this pandemic. Being in the healthcare field, I do see a lot of people who want to get out to businesses, restaurants, bars, entertainment. So whatever we do currently for ourselves and how we get businesses promoted and get people to kind of encouraged to go on out, people really want to get out there. Having spoken to a number of just patients and patients' families, everybody wants to get out. They're definitely looking to fill in those pizza shops. I know there were some concerns about keeping those 6 feet apart, but I think with the vaccines coming in, this is good news for our businesses here in town. Friends, family, definitely wanting to get out. So whatever we can do for them and kind of promoting that, like, the vaccines work. Definitely keeping a little bit of a safe distance out does work. It's definitely going to be good for our businesses here in town. I see it every day at the hospital. I see it trickling into our town zone over here. Just that overall feeling of wanting to re-engage.
I don't have any evidence for what I'm about to say, but I think business is going to boom at the end of this year and next year.
Just a general feeling. Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not quite sure that this town shouldn't at least extend the outside dining, relax those rules for at least one more year. And let people go back out like it was. That was pretty successful last year. And some people got pretty creative where they were gonna put tables and chairs. And some of those places were pretty well packed. So I think that would be, I'm not sure if that's ever been brought up for this coming year to extend the outside dining.
Do like that you write a letter or something? Is there something we can do to, as the EDC, to kind of put that seed out there, plant that seed and hope that?
I don't think we as a town have been very restrictive.
No.
The issue has been location. I mean,
Yeah. But I think what the point is, can we encourage, is there anyone, maybe we can talk to Mark, see if there's anything in the works right now
yeah,
to extend it. If not, then maybe we just draft a letter from EDC, just saying that we encourage the town to consider relaxing the outdoor dining rules for, the 2021 season, summer season. So, but it couldn't hurt. So let's ask the question before we send the letter. If nothing's being planned, then maybe we go ahead and write the letter and just get it on file, just to support the local businesses. So
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea.
all right, thanks, Joe.
thanks, Jack. It's part of what Katerina said. Joe and I are both sitting here with our masks off because we're reasonably bulletproof with the vaccines. So, and I think more and more people are going to start feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
I think restaurants, particularly that could advertise that their entire staff has been vaccinated, will probably get more business in the short term than others who can't. I think that's, if I were running a restaurant, that would be a marketing strategy I would consider. If I could get my people vaccinated. I mean, Robbie, you're so young, you're not going to get vaccinated until
You already got it.
I know.
You just wanted to say it again.
Well, I mean, the rest of us.
He forgot that I already said it is the problem.
Steve's probably the youngest one. Stephen, have you gotten any vaccines yet?
Not yet. I think I'm last on the priority chart.
Everybody can get it now.
Oh, all right, good. I haven't even really heard, but yeah.
Yeah, register and get them so we can have this group back in a room. Like
Yeah, we'll
this.
get back in the room together.
Yeah, I know my dad is getting it like the week after next or next week, one of those, so.
Well, you can register, I think after Friday. Is that right, Katerina? It's open to everybody?
I think, please don't quote me, I'm not entirely sure yet, but I believe the idea now is that we have vaccinated what they considered top priority groups.
Yeah.
And after Friday, now we're really kind of starting to open up the gates. Maybe one of the things, if we want to think about for making that economic, as far as social media goes and our website is, sites to get your vaccine, kind of encourage you also to kind of have that feeling of safety, get your vaccine and be able to go out to your restaurant, flower shop, mingle again, whatever it may be. Just, ideas kind of out there to kind of add to that website, vaccination clinics.
Well, we've been doing vaccines in this building the last couple of Saturdays, but you have to make your reservations through vans, I guess, but still.
All right, we'll move on to item 9, which is the second public participation. Is there anybody for second public participation? And no hands raised? Okay. Okay, Catherine, you're up.
Yep, thank you. Catherine Camera, 31 Cottage Place. I forgot you have the second public participation, and there was something that I was going to thinking of, but I'll remember next time. So thank you for putting it back in, but I'm a little delayed in remembering that you did. So thank you for that. Have a good
Okay,
night.
thank you. Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So,
Okay.
I'll second it.
Jack seconded. Okay, thank you, everybody.
All right,
And we'll see you in a month. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.